Good evening. Welcome to the State of Business on our television with me, Kavishka Pereira. Let's take a look at today's headlines. Central Bank to continue to resort to active OMOs to manage liquidity in money market. Hambantota Port records stellar performance in first year. News in detail. Speaking at the presentation of the monetary and fiscal policies of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka for 2019, Governor Dr. Indrajit Kumaraswamy expressed the following developments in public debt management.
During 2018, we encountered several challenges in government debt management due to interest rate normalization in the US, the skewed government financing requirements, as well as uncertainties in the political sphere. These factors affected the government's borrowing cost and imposed pressure on achieving targets under the medium-term debt management strategy, particularly towards the latter part of 2018, with the upward adjustment in yield rates and market preference for short and medium-term maturities. The new Treasury bond issuance system, which was introduced in July 2017, was reviewed at the end of the first quarter of 2018, taking into account the performance of the issuance system and the feedback from market participants. Several improvements, including an enhanced market-based acceptance arrangement as a prerequisite for the activation of Phase 3 of the auction system, are to be introduced by the end of the first quarter of 2019. Further, the auction calendar for Treasury bonds and bills was published by the Central Bank on a rolling basis with the view of improving transparency and predictability of the primary auction process.
Explaining further, Governor Dr. Indrajit Kumaraswamy elaborated on the advances in foreign exchange management.
The new Foreign Exchange Act was introduced in 2017. At the end of 2017, procedures for inward capital flows by foreign investors were simplified. Limits on outward capital flows were broadened in selected sectors. Foreign exchange transactions were relaxed, with authorized dealers having general permission to transfer enhanced eligible migration allowances. We also intend to take actions to revisit liberalized capital transactions. In addition, we plan to review the criteria for granting permission for money-changing businesses to increase healthy competition amongst market players and reduce informal market activities. The monitoring function will be strengthened further by developing a new real-time foreign exchange reporting and monitoring system to capture data on foreign exchange sales and purchases. With a view to obtaining all data pertaining to cross-border and internal transactions in foreign currency, we intend to put in place a comprehensive international transaction reporting system.
CBSL Governor Dr. Indrajit Kumaraswamy also stated that open market operations is a strategy to manage market liquidity and not a mechanism to print new money, while speaking at the presentation on the monetary and fiscal policies of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka for 2019.
The Central Bank will continue to resort to active open market operations to manage liquidity in the money market, thereby guiding the short-term interest rate, which is the key operating target to navigate inflation in the targeted range. I wish to emphasize that the open market operations are a strategy to manage market liquidity to align short-term interest rates with the policy stance, and not a mechanism to print money by purchasing or holding treasury bills by the Central Bank, as wrongly interpreted by some analysts. A clear distinction must be made between such OMOs, widely practiced by the central banks all around the world, and monetizing the fiscal deficit through the central bank purchasing treasury bills issued on behalf of the government. The latter is essentially high-powered money. You print high-powered money when you finance the government's fiscal deficit. But open market operations are used all over the world to manage liquidity.
Stay tuned for more news after this short commercial break. Welcome back. The Hambantota International Port saw an increase in vessels docking at the port in the first week of the new year. One of the region's top multi-purpose ports, Hambantota International Port currently handles a number of different activities, from ship-to-ship transfers to ship repairs and warm layups. Traffic to the Hambantota International Port increased significantly during the last year, with 300 vessels calling with different service requirements. While the volume of RO-RO vessels has increased by 136%, multi-services provided by the port has pushed its activities, which were previously centered around RO-RO and passenger ship operations, to bulk, break bulk, ship supply services, repairs and layups. The Hambantota International Port expects to see a manifold increase in vessel traffic in the new year, which would greatly increase the turnover of the port and in turn provide economic benefits to the Hambantota region. Speaking exclusively to Art Television for a special business program, Chairman of the National Chamber of Exporters Ramal Jasingha expressed the following.
So this is where the economists of the country would have to find a way out scientifically. A budget would have to address all that, and also the long-term robustness. So you can't have a budget being changed in the middle. You can't change the goalpost while you run. So the budget has to be very well thought out, very well planned, and it should be consistent for the period of the budget. Now you can't have a policy of tax imposed and suddenly change it. It has to be very carefully, professionally done. So it would have to balance with the aspirations of the producers, exporters, importers and manufacturers, as well as that of the common man.
Now let's take a look at the weekly economic indicators released by the Central Bank of Sri Lanka last Friday. During the period, crude oil prices followed an increasing trend. Price increase was supported by OPEC-led supply cuts and hopes of successful US-China trade talks. However, concerns over slowing global economic growth, which could dent demand, dampened the price pressure to some extent. Overall, both Brent and WTI prices rose by $4.30 per barrel and $3.80 per barrel, respectively, within the period. Weekly average prime lending rate for the week ending 11th January 2019 decreased by 10 bps to 11.82% compared to the previous week. The reserve money decreased compared to the previous week mainly due to decrease in currency in circulation. The total outstanding market liquidity decreased to a deficit of Rs 168.99 billion by the end of the week compared to a deficit of Rs 152.89 billion by the end of last week. During the year up to 11th January 2019, the Sri Lankan rupee appreciated against the US dollar by 0.3%. Given the cross-currency exchange rate movements, the Sri Lankan rupee depreciated against the euro by 0.5%, the pound sterling by 0.3%, the Japanese yen by 1.7% during this period, and appreciated against the Indian rupee by 1.0%. The gross official reserves were estimated at $6,936.35 million US dollars as of 31st December 2018. Well, that's all the news we have for today. Join us tomorrow at the same time for more of the very latest. Thank you and good night.